And yes, you know what time it is once again. Yes, sir. It is Victory Sunday here right now. And welcome to this edition here of the Meta Steel Podcast. And with yours truly, Charles Prodigy Richey. Steelers hang on for a roller coaster of a win, which they started off dominating earlier in this game. Higher 20-point lead around third quarter, slowly chipped away at it. Ben Rossberg having two interceptions in the second half. One to close out the first half. We'll get to what went wrong in this contest. But for right now, the Steelers right now they remain unbeaten, 6-0. Their second best start in franchise history. With, of course, the 1978 Steelers. They won their first 7 games of the year. The Steelers will look to match that next week, as it'll be a battle of first place in the AFC North versus the Baltimore Ravens. That should be a good one right there, as usual. In Baltimore, as we look at it, Mike Tomlin now improves his record to October to right now 38-14-0. One of the favorite most is I usually say October for this guy, Mike Tomlin. He's proven once again who's really done his phenomenal work in this month. As everyone is well aware, Steelers do a clean sweep in the month of October. Last time they did it was 2 years ago, back in 2018, where they also went 3-0. They went 3-0 again in 2020. And then we'll see what happens from here. But for right now, Steelers not only find themselves in first place in the AFC North, but also the AFC. A lot more exciting stuff to get into right now. And just to hear everyone's reaction to this game right now, we're kicking off this late night edition here of the post game show. Once again, you can follow me on my social media on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey for the Best Steel Podcast on Twitter. It is at Metasteel CJR. On Instagram, it is at Metasteel Nation. And I gotta tell you, just nothing gets more exciting than that right there. You knew the biggest elephant in the rooms for today's game was definitely going to be Derrick Henry. Steelers did a phenomenal job of shutting him down through pretty much 3/4 of this game. If you really take a look at it, I mean, he really didn't start to kind of like really start doing some damage like until the fourth quarter right there. I mean, when you really take a look at this guy, I mean, this guy, he definitely gave all he had right here. I mean, the Steelers' defensive front was ready to meet him. I mean, and I gotta tell you, Vince Williams played one of the most phenomenal balls in my recollection for a long time, and he definitely had a game led both teams in tackles for the most part. And right now, I mean, look where they're hanging at for right now. I mean, you look at this team right now throughout the rest of the way. I mean, when you really start to digest what they got coming up ahead of them, they got 2 more games out of the out of this 3-game road trip for right now, and just really an all-in effort. I mean, to say the least. I mean, say what you will about Ben Roethlisberger's 3 picks. I mean, passing yardage wise, I mean, it seemed to be looking like the sharpest we've seen him all season, but there's just still some tendencies where I'm looking at this guy and I gotta be I'm thinking to myself, still the same old Ben Roethlisberger in this case. I hate to talk negatively about a guy like this, but the fact of the matter is, he almost did lose on the ball game in that moment, and you got to be more careful. You got to wise up here. It was definitely a lot more too close for comfort here as we look at things. For right now, the Steelers, they got 6 out of the remaining 10 games of the year on the road for right now. So that's going to definitely be interesting right there. So 6 more games on the road, beginning with the Baltimore Ravens, followed by the Dallas Cowboys. Then you got the Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville on November 22nd. Then you also got the Buffalo Bills on Sunday night. You got the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday night. And then last but not least, close out the season in Cleveland against the Browns. And those are not going to be some easy tasks right now. I mean, we take a look at how well this defense has been doing. My only concern is my only retort so far. They've almost found ways to lose games late after having a commanding lead. I mean, you had at least two games throughout the season where you nearly blew 17-point leads. I mean, you have a 14-point game, you almost melted down against the Broncos back in week 2, 12 points around late in the fourth quarter, right there, after getting a safety, held on to win that game by 5. 17-point lead, almost blown against the Eagles 2 weeks ago. And then last but not least, 20-point game today against the Tennessee Titans right there. And I got to tell you, for right now, as much as I love watching the stuffs on a guy like Derrick Henry, I just feel like the Steelers at this time, their defense, they got pretty laxed. I mean, they did not create any takeaways in that department. I mean, it just seemed to kind of let them get back in it. And right now, I gotta be honest with you, I'm not really too much of a happy camper trying to digest this win. I mean, it's just one of those victories right here. When you break it down, it definitely feels like a loss in some ways. I mean, yeah, you're unbeaten. You're riding at an all-time high, playing with house money, 6-0, your second best start in franchise history. You really got a lot of stuff to like look in the mirror for right now. I mean, bottom line is it's 60 minutes of football, 60-minute men, as Bill Coward used to say when he used to coach his team. And you can imagine Mike Tomlin feels like the same way on that. I mean, you got to be able to make sure you're covering all bases. You cannot get too relaxed. I mean, at the end of the day here, it's all about doing everything you can. And I got to tell you, Ben Roethlisberger almost lost him this game. I mean, the last interception he threw, tight window once again. I forget who was targeting. I'm not sure if it was Johnson or Schuster, but I mean, there you go again. I mean, if they would have lost this game, I could almost promise you throughout the week, people will be like grilling Ben Roethlisberger for most of this week and just thinking like, here we go. Granted, he's having a nice start to the season. I mean, this is one of the best starts he's had in a long while, so I'm not going to be too hard on Ben for right now. I mean, when you really look at his season here and what he's been able to do for right now, I mean, he's starting off the season pretty fantastic on a great footnote here. I mean, when you really look at, like, more particularly his touchdown interception ratio, this is the best we have ever seen it in a long time. I want to say it. I'd have to say for at least 6 games here. I mean, for right now, as it stands, I mean, he's got 13 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. I mean, obviously, there's a little bit more of a hiccup game right here, but you got to give a lot of credit to this Titans defense as well. I mean, let's not act like, I mean, they were just getting whipped all day. There was times throughout this game where I was seeing the light down the tunnel here. I was just watching how many times a lot of these balls are being tipped, whether it's by like by the Titans safeties, some of their linebacking crew, where was a pair of balls being tipped at the last scrimmage. I mean, these were balls right here that were just waiting to be picked off. And the Titans did eventually make the Steelers pay. They made one hell of a ball game here. I mean, this is what you do here. This is how you get it done. And the sickening part is on the Steelers too. Defensively, they only got 2 sacks today, but I mean that's okay. I mean, but you know what the biggest shocking thing is too for a guy like Ben Roethlisberger? This is his first ever career victory against Ryan Tannehill and a starter in their head-to-head matchups. Uh, he obviously, I mean, when facing against Ryan Tannehill all time, I mean, when you look at a guy like Ben Roethlisberger, I mean, he was 0-2 for the most part going into this contest. 0-2 against those previous Jets losses right there back in 2013 and 2016. Gets his first victory of the year. I mean, gets his first victory over Ryan Tannehill, I should say. And with that victory, too, it earns Ben Roethlisberger's 75th victory over first round quarterbacks, which is the most against any drafted round quarterback or undrafted quarterbacks. And he also officially passes Pro Football Hall of Fame quarterback John Elway in career wins at 163, 79, and 1. I remember a week ago, he passed him in regular season wins at 150. Right now, he gets his 151st career victory for right now. I mean, we see what this guy is capable of doing here and what he's been able to do. And for right now, I mean, you just see this stuff just continue to mount up for a guy like Big Ben here. I mean, just obviously an emotional high for right now, starting off. But I got to tell you, for right now, I really like what he's doing because for right now, he's 151, 71, and 1. And it just continues to get fantastic here. And we'll see how this continues to go along here for this ride here. But for right now, let's see what happens. Excuse me. He's 150, 71, and 1 right now. And we'll continue to see what happens right now. Hopefully, he'll be able to shake this game off for right now, and they'll be able to be much more back in tune going forward. But, I mean, you got to believe this is one they had to dig deep. This is their second win against a winning team all season. And not only that, too, for right now, I mean, I just love the fact, too, that the Steelers, they took advantage of one of their hottest months, October. I think that was just phenomenally huge here. I mean, they just continue to just, for whatever reason, when this month comes around, October as I like to call it, they just usually just seem to play one of their best football of the year under a guy like Mike Tomlin. I think what they just try and do, I mean, this is just where they really just start peaking here, where they really start like warming up and start playing their best ball here along the way. I mean, at the end of the day, too, you look at a guy like Mike Vrabel, who got drafted here as a Pittsburgh Steeler once upon a time, wanted to go win his 3 rings with the New England Patriots. And I tell you what, you got to give a lot of credit to where credit's due with Mike Vrabel because he really did a phenomenal job covering the game plan. Kept hearing the announcers right there, Charles Davis, I believe, was mentioning with Ian Eagle, how they were able to still keep Derrick Henry in a part of this game plan here. They were not ready to throw in the towel on him. I mean, as far as like keep him on the sidelines. But I got to tell you what, remember one of the biggest keys I did mention earlier today before this game started was going to be controlling the time of possession. And I got to tell you what, I mean, you got a guy like James Conner, too, who really did a whale of a job in this game. I mean, for the most part. I mean, when you really break it down here, I mean, James Conner, I mean, for today, I mean, who had 20 carries for 82 yards, averaging over 4 yards per carry, no touchdowns scored, but he was also able to add 29 receiving yards. So he was able to get 111 yards on scrimmage for today. And, I mean, that's huge right there. I mean, James Conner, I mean, this guy who, along with Juju Smith-Schuster, which, by the way, shout out to Juju Smith-Schuster, by the way, and Diontae Johnson, but especially Schuster right here. Despite not getting any touchdowns, he still caught 9 receptions for 85 yards with his longest
with the Home Depot
8 yards right there.
App,
and
your phone
I just feel like I said,
is your most powerful tool.
all year,
Find just what you need in a snap. Get a second opinion in seconds and have it all delivered.
They just seem to be falling asleep behind the wheel. They just seem to get a little bit too comfortable, get a little bit too laxed. But at the end of the day, too, they're finding ways to win tight games. I mean, it should not be tight at all to be, I mean, if you ask me, when you have double-digit leads.
Free. Download today.
I mean,
The
for
Home
right
Depot.
now, I
How
gotta tell
doers
you,
get
Robert
more
Spillane,
done.
a big shout out to him for right now as well, making one of the huge stops earlier, but eventually got wiped out due to a holding call on Mika Fitzpatrick. I mean, earlier. I mean, which made first down once again was automatic first down. There was no yards added, just turned into an automatic first because where they were at, I mean, inside like the what, like 1-2 yard line at that point. So that could have been 4 and out potentially right there. That did not happen. But I mean, you saw guys like here also too on the defense who's really did a decent job in their own way. I thought Cam Sutton had like a few right there. He could have been picking right here.
High formation. Tannehill turns, gives to the second man. Up over the top goes Henry, and that's the touchdown, his 7th of the year. And this is getting much too interesting if you're a Steelers fan.
Yeah. But for right now, I mean,
oh my,
Derrick Henry. I mean, the guy who's been like one of the guys a lot of people have been saying, this is a guy who's like running out of his mind, like Jim Brown. I mean, Walter Payton like type numbers. They held this guy to 75 yards, about 3.8 yards per carry off of 20 carries altogether, with his long speed 17. Where I was getting a little concerned with was when the fourth quarter hit. I mean, once you got into that point right here, I mean, in this game right here, I mean, basically the beginning of that fourth quarter, I mean, in this contest here, when we look at it and where they were going, trying to figure this out here. I mean, I just really feel for right now, when we take a look at it here, I mean, for the time being here in this contest,
it's a.
I mean, going into the fourth quarter, the split in this game.
What a way to
pretty much had for this time. What was it like? This is a real phenomenal lead here.
Halloween. My lips touch dog lips.
But anyway, at the end of the day, I mean, you saw this team like slowly chipping away, having a 10-point lead. They were able to take down 27-24 here. And right there, I mean, you just saw like slowly but surely this Titans team really
left to right over the middle is A.J. Brown, and he's on his way. He's at the 35, the 30,
right
the
there.
25, the 20, the 15, 10, and
then,
that
like,
quickly,
late
73-yard pass from Tannehill to Brown, and
Ben Roethlisberger trying to
the Titans are on the board again.
Up the middle.
That's what scares you. Yeah, when you start to feel like, all right, you got things where you want them. Right. You got A.J. Brown coming off and just running a little. You can see Mika Fitzpatrick got hooked up looking for possibly an interception and missed him, and he split the safeties.
That's the only part where my gripe is with Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, I heard a lot of people, a lot of friends, and people around me kept saying, well, this guy right here, when he realizes
high formation, Tannehill turns, gives to the second man, up over the top goes Henry, and that's the touchdown, his 7th of the year.
It really felt like you're going to be
is
seeing like one of
much
the best
too interesting
teams
if you're a Steelers fan.
Yeah. I mean, so far, I mean, that is the case. I mean, they're unbeaten. My only thing is Ben Roethlisberger, like I said, he still showed his stripes today where he's being forced in that situation. That's my only concern right now. I mean, what's going to happen if we get like later in the games right there? I mean, where it's against like the Ravens or yet alone like the Ravens on Thanksgiving, the Bills. That's where you got to be careful with for right now, if you ask me. And we'll see about this, but for right now, take a deep breath. Guys got the victory here. And right now, too, one of the key injuries, too, that happened during today's game, you saw Diontae Johnson limped off the field earlier today. Dale Lolley of DK Pittsburgh Sports, he noted that for Diontae Johnson, he said his injury was an ankle bruise. he gave him the indication that he'll be good to go next week when they travel to Baltimore at TBankStadium to take on the Ravens. Right now, Steelers, despite all this craziness, they lose the turnover battle, which was my biggest gripe for today's game. All from 3 interceptions by Ben Roethlisberger, -3 in that area. That was the first turnover battle they lost all year. I mean, the only one they did not win, but it was dead even, which was back in week number 2, home opener against the Broncos. I mean, the time of possession, remember like what I was saying once again earlier, they dominated the time of possession, controlling the ball right here by 13 minutes more than the Titans did. Steelers had 36 minutes and 37 seconds, while the Titans had the ball for 23 minutes and 23 seconds. Had that time of possession been flipped around, you probably see the Steelers get their first loss of the season. From my standpoint, I'm not sure if they would have been able to hang on to this victory and won so soundly, but we'll see. I just feel like for right now, what ends up happening, you take what you could get, and I mean, you just gotta just chalk this one away and just move on. I mean, you just have to learn from yourself. I mean, that's one of the great things about like the late great Hall of Fame and Super Bowl champion coach Don Shula even said too. This is a guy who still, like mentioned, if you ever watched America's game when they won their undefeated season, and I'm not by any means thinking this team as an undefeated season. Far from it. Far-fetched. I will not go that route. But, I mean, Don Shula's point is that, I mean, just because you win so handily doesn't mean that there wasn't any mistakes in the ball game that can be corrected. I mean, those are things you still have to pay attention to. You want to make sure, I mean, you're tying your eyes, you're crossing your T's right here. I mean, the Steelers, I mean, for the most part, I mean, without Devin Bush, their first game without him, I mean, and having a guy like Robert Spillane, I mean, his whole family and friends came out to the game wearing number 41 jerseys for that guy. I don't know about you, but I cannot stop reliving that play right there where he stuffed Derrick Henry at the line of scrimmage right there. That was like probably like one of the biggest plays that stood out for the game right there. It was just disappointing you had to have a guy like Mika Fitzpatrick get called with defensive holding, which wiped away a beautiful play. That's my only biggest beef I had with it, and I was just not pleased with that. But at the end of the day, still unbeaten for right now. Let's go ahead and get some more stuff right now. Also, Steelers sideline reporter Missy Matthews, she notes that Vince Williams has recorded 2 or more tackles for loss in 4 of the Steelers' 6 games this season. He leads the NFL with 12 tackles for losses, which is the most over the first 6 games of a season in team history, and tied for the 3rd most in the league since 1999, since they were counting tackles for losses. Also, too, the Steelers now have opened 9 seasons of franchise history with victories in its first 2 road games. Missy Matthews also points out those years were 1975, 1978, 1979, 1983, 1992, 1999, 2005, 2010, 2020, with 4 of those being Super Bowl years, with, of course, 75, 78, 79, and 2005. So that's some good stuff right there. Now, as for the penalties right here, the penalties the Steelers did incur in this game, 7 total for 73 yards, pretty much 4 on the offense, 2 on the defense, and 1 on special teams. I mean, basically, had about 57% of those penalties coming from the offensive side right here. You had 2 of them earlier in that first drive where Steelers haven't scored an opening touchdown. I believe it was, 23 games? I think Ian Eagle mentioned in that commentary. Yeah, 2 of them Chooks for in that drive. Offensive holding for 10 yards and a face mask for 15 yards. And then also, too, the other penalties that were on offense, you also had the false start on Eric Ebron for 5 yards. And last but not least, you also had another one. No, that was it, pretty much. Excuse me. So there you go right there. So 2 on Chooks for 1 on Henry Mondeau right there. I mean, for offensive holding for 9 yards. And then you had Eric Ebron, false start for 5 yards, and then 2 Chooks for with the offensive holding and the face mask. And then, like I said, too, for as far as the two on the defense goes, you had Henry Mondeau go for encroachment for 5 yards, and Mika Fitzpatrick holding on the defense. And then James Pierre pushing out bounds on special teams return right there. Unnecessary roughness for 15 yards. It was still going to be a first down regardless because they were getting the ball at that point. But, I mean, those are some stuff that almost proved to be eventually costly. I mean, it definitely gave the Titans some extra life right here. I like what I'm seeing so far, but I got to see this team finish much stronger right now. Fernando Curly Sanchez. No, I'm not sure if I'm going to go that far, if they're better than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Listen, you're undefeated, but there's still plenty of flaws with this team. I'm going to have to say no for that for right now. I mean, simply because 2 words, Tom Brady. Listen, I mean, this is a team right here. I mean, when you look at a guy, I mean, like Tom Brady, what he's doing right there in Tampa, moving on from Bill Belichick, 5-2 atop the catbird seat in the NFC South right now. I mean, this is a team that's really doing some nice cooking for right now and really starting to build some confidence up here. I mean, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I believe right now, I mean, trying to do everything in their power to be the first ever team to host the Super Bowl in their hometown. And we'll see if that could come to fruition right here. But I got to tell you for right now, I mean, you got to better well believe what they're doing at this point is that, I mean, they got a lot of stuff striving for them for right now. And for right now, one of the biggest headlines, too, don't forget, in about 2 more weeks, you're going to be seeing the return of Antonio Brown right now, being reunited with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Listen, say what you will about a guy, a former Steeler, Antonio Brown, having his off-field drama, what he's been getting himself in trouble with. I mean, and since moving on from this team, I mean, this guy has been spiraling. But at the same time, too, I mean, I do believe a guy like Tom Brady will finally get through to Antonio Brown. I mean, there's even the headline, too, that Bruce Arians does believe that Antonio Brown has matured and that the decision to sign that battle receiver didn't come at the urging of quarterback Tom Brady. So that's a little interesting note, but I find it a little bit hard to believe. I do believe that Tom Brady had a lot more to do with it. You know as well as I do with that. And I just really got a feel for right now. I mean, come on. I'm just glad it's not with the Ravens. I mean, obviously it's in the other league, but at the same time, too, I mean, what more can you ask for? Steelers are taking care of business right now, still undefeated. I'm not really buying into much of the Kool-Aid about being unbeaten. Still want to see them take care of the business with their way in their division. So now let's go on some game balls right now for today. Game ball beginning on defense. Vince Williams led both teams with 10 total tackles, 9 of them being solo, 2 tackles for loss, a sack, and a quarterback hit. I mean, so when you really look at this right here, grand salami right here. I mean, think about it. I mean, checking all 4 of those boxes right there, that's a lot coming from a guy like here who really comes off on the bench on special like third down plays or starter, the way he's rotated. Then you also got Juju Smith-Schuster and Diontae Johnson. I'm going to give a ball to 2 guys on offense, Smith-Schuster and Johnson. They both combined for 18 receptions for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns, all 2 touchdowns coming by Diontae Johnson. And that's going to do it for a wrap for this edition here of the Mouse Steel podcast here. And of course, yours truly, Charles Prodigy Richey. Once again, make sure if you guys ever wish to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey for the Mouse Steel podcast on Twitter. It is at Mouse Steel CGR on Instagram at Mouse Steel Nation and on Twitter at Mouse Steel CGR. As always, leave everyone. Don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I gone.